Hi, my name is Sean Mabry. I'm a writer, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. You see, back at the writers conference I went to in June, I met an editor named Elaine who has a book out now called Bestseller Metrics. And it's a how-to writing book, but it's unlike any other how-to writing book I've read. It's got this really interesting approach where, like the title suggests, it's all about numbers. In fact, I've seen some people compare it to Moneyball. It's like Moneyball for writing books. And I'm not a numbers person naturally, but I'm an analytical person, so I was curious about it. And Ash and I, Elaine, Ash, I don't know why I went by her last name, she and I connected at the conference, had some great conversations, and so she actually went and sent me a free copy of the book. And now I have actually started going through the tests in the book on my manuscript. So I figured I'd do a quick walkthrough video of A, how that test works, and then B, what I've learned from it. So the first test, in really broad strokes, is to basically count all your characters in the first quarter of the manuscript. All characters. Like, literally anything, like if your main character sees a dog walk across the street, that dog is now a character, and you list them here on the first sheet. Doesn't matter if the dog never shows up again, it's a character. I wish I could remember the quote she said. It was something like anything that has a pulse, basically, is a character, or anything that like thinks and talks. So if you have like rock people, they would be a character. So basically, I went ahead and did that for part one of this test, and I ended up, you can see my sheet there, that's the first sheet. Second sheet, and then right down there, right? 53 characters for my first quarter, which is a lot. And there's actually a table that Elaine has where she took the metrics for a bunch of other bestsellers, and you can kind of compare to see how you stack up against other best-selling books. And I'm way on the high end. There's actually only one other book on that whole list that has as many first quarter characters as mine does, and it's Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. So that, I have more thoughts about that in a second, but I'll keep walking through the test. So then the second part, obviously, is you go through your last quarter, and can you see them there? Yeah, so I had to redo the math a few times, but like I said, not a numbers person, but I had 39 characters in my last quarter. And then finally, you cross-compare. So you look for any characters that appear in the first quarter that also show up in the last quarter. And there I had a nice, clean 15. Now that number is actually very good. Because the average number that she finds in her research for most novels is by the end of the book you have an average of 12 characters left. If you have 12 characters left or something, a little bit under, a little bit above, you're in good shape. That means you have presumably a tight, focused ending. It means that the people who are in the beginning of your story are also in the ending of your story, which is important. You want the ending to involve characters that people already know about. And the one thing I'm curious about from this test, and I'll get more clarity on this as I go through the sequential tests, is boy, I do have a lot of characters in that first quarter. What's interesting is that I noticed, and this is something I may have to ask Elaine about since we've been in contact over Facebook. I'm curious whether I should be counting characters that are hypothetical, characters that are like mentioned in conversation but don't actually exist in the world and don't show up physically in the scene. So for example, there's a big conversation towards the front of the book where one of my characters is theorizing about starting a cult. He's joking about starting a cult, and so as he's describing that, he mentions a lot of characters that are, like I said, purely hypothetical, because he's not actually going to do this, he's just making a joke. And but what's interesting about that is that when I thought a little bit deeper about that scene, I realized, like, well, that scene throws out a lot of information. Even though it's all in humor, and even though it's all hypothetical, it throws out a lot of information that doesn't actually add to the plot, which I'm not one of those strict, everything must be plot type writers that, I actually like literary asides. I like when things wander when the writer wanders just a little bit. So it's not a hard no for me yet. I don't know, I might go back and trim that scene down. I might cut it out completely and, you know, replace it with something else. But it's funny because that's a part of the book I had thought was just kind of set. And it's cool that this test is making me rethink that. Because there have been other, you know, things I've been tweaking in the manuscript, but that was one of them. And it's especially important because that scene is actually within my first 15 pages, which means agents might look at it, and in fact have looked at it. So I definitely want to get that dialed in. So thank you, Elaine, Ash, for giving me the awesome free book, and thank you for encouraging me to make this video. I will keep doing these videos as I progress through the book. And so far I'm finding the test really helpful, and I highly recommend, I'll leave a link below, I highly recommend if you are a writer too, you check out Bestseller Metrics. It has some really fascinating concepts. There's one in particular, this video is probably going too long already, so I won't talk about it here, but she talks about something called imaginary memory, which I think is worth the price of the cover. It is one of the most useful and fascinating concepts in the craft of writing that I've ever seen, and I've never seen anyone else talk about it before. So credit to Elaine Ash for discovering that. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Probably sooner than next week.